And good morning, church. I'm going to ask you again, hi, Caleb. Good morning, brother. He always gives me the warmest welcome. You're my number one, bro. How's everybody doing today? The second time I get to say good morning. We still feeling good? Yes. Nobody is in the baptistry, I promise. We're going to move along with our regularly scheduled programming this morning. It's good to see you all. I hope you have your phones with you today. Phone check. Everybody pull them out. Oh, yeah. We're given permission to be on your phone during service. That's new. We're going to come back to that in just a few moments. Make sure that you have it with you. You're going to need them in a bit. It's going to be a little bit different today than most Sundays, and you guys are probably thinking, I don't know if you were here for your own greeting, mackerel. It's already been a little different. Last week, Alan full-on insulted riot and violence here up on this stage, and it's funny, I had someone say to me last week after our Sunday service, they said, I guess you just have to mention the word Buc-ee's and the whole idea of worshiping in decency and order just gets thrown out the window, doesn't it? Because things got a little bit crazy there for a second. But in all seriousness, that whole idea last week that we decided to take and run with, whose side are you on, is going to be related to what we're talking about for the next 3 weeks. And it's going to be a short series on a topic that I don't believe that we talk about enough, but it's one that we have to talk about if we're going to be serious about being disciples who make disciples, because it's a big part of our lives. In just a bit, I'm going to share something exciting we've been working very hard on for several months, and I hope it's going to help us to grow in one area related to sharing the gospel and advancing the kingdom in this community. If you're a member here, this is not new to you. Chances are you're not sitting there wondering, why is he talking about discipleship and sharing the story, and what's the deal with mission and vision in church? Because we've been on this journey and kind of wrestling with this together and what it means to be a group of disciples who make disciples for some time now. And we as a church are committed to living out the mission that Jesus has for us. So we've been doing a lot of work internally, and we're going to keep doing that. But all good internal work is evidenced by external results. And so for the next few weeks, we're going to talk about some of the external facing us that we show to the world around us, and specifically that digital us, both individually and collectively. Some of you might not believe this, but a lot of you are just like me, and you're thinking, I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago. I was there when the strength of men failed, when the internet connected to a home computer for the first time. And the entire world changed. And I know that back in those days when the internet began, no one could imagine this kind of digital dystopia that we live in right now, because if you remember what it was like, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to be really nice, by the way. We're going to turn this down. Every time you wanted to connect to the World Wide Web, as it was affectionately known back in those days, a century ago in the 1900s, a different time in a different world, you'd have to listen to this for like 17 minutes. And you'd sit at your... Goodness. Guys, every time you wanted to get on the internet, you had to sit through that. I think if we put those on our phones, it would cut down on our screen time if we tried to go use it every time we had to sit through that, because there was a real cost to connecting to this new world. Number one, you had to listen to that, and number two, it actually shut down the phone line before there were digital phone lines available. So you couldn't be on the phone and on the computer at the same time, and that kept us in check, but that world changed really fast because we got addicted to a low-resolution tone of a voice that greeted us on the other side of that shrieking, and it went something like, "You've got mail." And whether you did or not, it felt good to feel like someone was thinking of you after you popped that America Online CD into your optical disc drive. You remember logging into your AOL Instant Messenger maybe back in the day, back when your away message was the most important statement you could make about yourself. Any ladies in the room have the best away messages back when they were in college, high school years before? You don't want to admit it, but you guys were all beautiful disasters, and it was live, laugh, love on an instant message before it was ever at a Hobby Lobby. I promise you, I was there. And we took these CDs, yes, CDs, entire books and libraries of them, and we tried to stuff the entirety of an Encyclopedia Britannica on there. And before that, we had floppy disks that didn't actually flop, and before that, we had floppy disks that actually did. Napster happened, and we all became pirates as LimeWire became popular, as we downloaded illegal media in our parents' basements long before Captain Jack ran across the sands. We were all pirates at heart because of peer-to-peer networks. Then Friendster happened, and that was before my time. And then this crazy thing called MySpace happened. Anybody on MySpace? You're going to feel real old. You're old if you were on MySpace. Raise a hand if you were on MySpace. MySpace happened, and everyone was concerned about who was going to be in their top 8. You got T-Mobile stole it, and they had their 5 for your cell phone plans back in the day. But if you weren't in my top 8 on my MySpace page, you weren't really one of my riders. And if I wasn't in your top 8, I got nothing to say to you because I'm petty, and I still hold that grudge to this day. Your archived MySpace page is out there somewhere, and you didn't give our relationship the respect that it was due. And that's why we don't talk anymore. Anyway, Facebook happened on college campuses, and a weird thing happened with Facebook because at first it was just colleges that had it, and people started to do this thing where they would poke each other instead of asking each other out on dates. And you would just collect all these weird little pokes, no words, no expressions. It'd just be like, Alan poked you. Don't do that. Someone said the other day that you can actually still poke someone on Facebook. I'm going to recruit you guys to go on a scientific experiment to see if that's actually still possible. But don't get mad at me if it ruins some relationships because it's going to feel very awkward today in 2024. Then they let parents on Facebook. And it wasn't just for people on college campuses. It was for college campuses and the entire family. And it quickly went from just you and your college friends to a whole full-blown family reunion. And you know, a good family reunion comes with crude jokes and arguments about politics and disagreements. Reddit happened, Twitter happened, we verbed it, people started tweeting, now we X or something. Before TikTok was in danger of being banned, it was called Musical.ly and had little girls and boys all over the country lip-syncing to their favorite songs. Snapchat happened, and now the list seems endless. The social media revolution has been ubiquitous. And we have been with these platforms for so long that they just seem like they're a part of our life. And if we're really being honest, they are extensions of our life. And what started out as a curious entertainment has now become a driving force in our society. News gets to social media before it gets to any of your syndicated cable television stations. Social scientists now say that the networks on social media have replaced the Agora of old and much of the collective social function of our society. The lines between the digital you and the real you, the physical you, the tangible you, are more blurred than ever. And there are good things about that, and there are very, very dangerous things about that. So my message to you this morning as we start this brief series, it's going to be 3 weeks, is that yes, church, whether we like it or not, these online versions of us are here to stay. But they are, in fact, important extensions of us in this life. Because everybody you know has a digital presence, persona, or identity, whether it's true to who they are or just a very carefully curated version of themselves that they want you to see. We all have them. And every business has a persona as well. Every single entity in our world lives somewhere in that digital space. And so how we as Christians navigate this space, inhabit this space personally, and how we engage with the world around us in this online reality actually really matters. And I want to be blunt with you this morning. I think this is something that we're late to the game to be talking about as a group and as a family and with intention. Because as it relates to online life and the church, we've pretty much relegated it to these 2 things that we consider it to be. And number 1 is you may think that it's just a really cool marketing tool, and we should use it to market the church so that people will come. And it is a powerful marketing tool. And I will say that there are far too many people who don't recognize the power of what it can be for a church and the local community to be doing things well on the digital space. And we're going to talk about that. But we would also be in just as bad a shape if we thought that's all that it was. And if we put too much emphasis on that in the wrong way for the wrong reasons. But the second thing that we've thought about social media in the church is that basically, and I've actually heard this preached from a stage before, that church leadership stays out of what people are doing on their personal social media lives. That it's kind of this thing in our very intense, individualistic Western American psyche and perspective that this is, you've probably seen it a million times, or maybe you've even posted it, this is my wall, and this is my profile and my space. And guess what? If you don't like what I post, you can just unfollow. And I see some block fingers twitching right now. Like, Marcus, real quick, it's going to be a shootout and I'm going to cut you off. I don't have time for this negativity or accountability in my life and my social space. Now listen, this, especially in times of great unrest or controversy, has led to so much bloodshed in our church bodies. Churches have split. I'm familiar with churches that have split because of the way the church has carried itself online. So as powerful as it can be for us to be in this digital space, it can also be damaging. And it has damaged that powerful witness in the digital world that all of us have together for the first time in history. We're about to be in another one of those tense and controversial periods of time in our country. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we are in an election year. Yeah. You guys are getting ready to block somebody. Yeah. Some of y'all have a collection of memes stored away that you can't wait to fire out into the cyberspace as soon as it seems appropriate. I see that what we're talking about over the next few weeks might have seemed strange at first thought. We're really going to spend an entire Sunday or Sundays talking about social media and the church. But if you stop and consider that statistically most Americans will spend 33% of their life connected to a screen every single day, statistically the estimate is that you spend about a third of your life sleeping, so invest in a good mattress. It has a lot to do for you. And I don't really know how mattress stores stays in business because people aren't buying them that often, are they? I just feel like I need to share this with you guys. I think they're fronts for illegal money schemes because there's way too many mattress stores. It's like banks, car washes, and another mattress firm. And I don't know who's buying that many mattresses for them to be in every strip. But invest in it. It's 33% of your life. And 33% of our lives, we're attached to a screen. Even if it's not this one, it's the one that's the tablet at your dining room table or on your coffee table. It's the television screen that's in your living room or in your kitchen. It's the work screen that you work from as you sit behind your desk. But how negligent would we be to not talk about how we as Christians should be carrying ourselves in such a world? And how negligent would we be if we don't talk about how we can reach the world that is spending so much of their life in that digital space? No. I say to you this morning, church, we can't afford to prefer to just worry about our Christian walks in the real world only. And only worry about our interactions with people and what we're doing with them intentionally in the flesh. No, church, we can no longer afford to live in one world and post in another. All of that in good time. This morning I want to ask, how do we approach this new reality in the world that is increasingly connected and online and virtual from a biblical perspective? We never want to lose sight of that. And there's not so much as one verse about a computer or a smartphone or a social network in the Bible. I looked. But is there anything that can help us? You might remember several months ago, back in September, we talked about a passage in Acts chapter 17. I'm going to read it really quick, verses 16 through 21 one more time. This is Paul in Athens, and I think that there's some principles here that can guide us as we endeavor to do the digital world really well as Christians and as the church. It says, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he's waiting for a couple of his partners in that missionary journey to arrive. His spirit was provoked within him when he saw the city was full of idols. Have you ever just opened up your Facebook and immediately your spirit is provoked within you? That word means he got angry, right? He got anxious immediately. If you open up the desolate wasteland that is Twitter or X, you're going to be mad immediately. It's filled with trollery and people just saying whatever they want because anonymity is a powerful drug for the human psyche. Your Facebook, you'll be provoked. Your Instagram, you'll be provoked. This is Paul as he sets foot in Athens. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the devout persons in the marketplace every day with those who happened to be there. Some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers also conversed with him, and some said, what does this babbler wish to say? Have you ever seen someone post something on social media and thought, boy, they're just babbling. They love to hear themselves talk and type. And you got to figure out the perfectly crafted response. You might want to take the Jim Moore approach. Don't press send. Go away for 2 minutes like Tony Dungy says, and then if it still makes sense to you, when you come back after 2 minutes, you can post it then. But never post off the cuff. Please don't treat your social media feed like a quick draw revolver because people will die and that blood will never leave. Okay. What does this babbler want to say? Others said he seems to be a preacher of foreign divinities because he was preaching about Jesus and the resurrection. They took him and they brought him to the Areopagus saying, may we know this new teaching that you're presenting? For you bring some strange things to our ears and we wish to know, therefore, what these things mean. Now, all the Athenians, and this is an important text here, all the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there would spend their time in nothing except telling or hearing something new. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but it sounds like that these philosophers love to sit and see what new news was going to come across their steps every single day, and then they would judge it and reply to it. And now we don't sit on the marble at the Areopagus with the Epicureans and the Stoics, but we will open up a feed on our phone filled with wannabe Epicureans and Stoics who do nothing but doom scroll from sunup to sundown, trying to see some new thing that has happened in the world, calling people babblers who they disagree with, engaging and interacting with people for no other reason but to argue with them. Very really, what Paul was immersed in Athens, where his spirit was provoked, is very much a parallel to what our online cyberspace is every single time you step foot in there. This Greco-Roman Agora, which was the marketplace where Paul was the center of all life and their society. It was the center of commerce. It's where the goods were traded, where food and commodities were exchanged. It was in an urban environment like Athens, the place where people would visit daily for their necessities. Newsflash, without refrigeration, you couldn't stock up for a week. You couldn't hit the H-E-B app and have them deliver groceries to your trunk and then pull away and you're good for the week. You got to go every day to get your food. You got to go every day to get what you need. So they were there all the time. And there was no newspaper or television, radio, internet, streaming. Certainly no social media, none of those things. The Agora was the place where people were and did life together. It's where they did business and immersed themselves in culture. It's the place that people relied on to get their news and what was going on in town. It's the place where people were finding out what was going on in their country and with their neighbors. That word gospel that we use so freely was actually a Roman term, a Greek term, where people would come and proclaim something or a message or news that had happened. They were going there to see their neighbors. It was the main information artery and highway of the entire culture when it came to religious, intellectual, or economic matters of the entire Roman Empire. Do you remember back in September when we were studying this passage, I said, I want to plant the seed for a later time? Well, I don't know if you spent any time thinking about what I presented that day, but today is the time. Because we have to think about our modern parallel to the Roman Agora. Just think about the characteristics that we just outlined, church. Everyone is there every day. It's where people go to get news and gossip. It's where people get exposed to new ideas. It's where people do business and commerce. It's where people consume the arts and endless streams of media. It's where the ideologies and major thinkers get trickled down to the common man and the populace. And it's also a place where Paul made it a priority to spend time and surgically dialogued with those people around him. Are you starting to catch my drift? Because there is a place in our world today where all aspects of life, news, commerce, ideas, gossip, and media collide and reside. It is online. And so you don't walk to the Agora to do business like a Greek or a Roman would have in the days of Paul, but you almost certainly visit that digital Agora today. And you have to know and understand and take seriously that the way you carry yourself on social media is very, very important and powerful. We'll talk a lot about that specific aspect in a couple of weeks from now. But this is where Paul spent time intentionally, and he had a certain perspective that allowed him to do it effectively and do it well. And all I'm presenting to you this morning is saying that we ought to adopt the same perspective if we hope to be disciples who make disciples in this ever-evolving digital world. You guys picking up what I'm laying down this morning? It's not so different as we have thought. And it's not that the Bible doesn't say anything about this. The internet and social media are the modern day Agora and more. That means that the church ought to be intentionally present in telling the story, and not telling the story in that place is at best ignorant and at worst negligent. Because you can't make disciples without people. And in order to have people, you got to be where people are. And since our world has come to be at such a breakneck pace 24/7, the social spaces that we used to inhabit and encounter people face to face have become fewer and fewer. Like, do you guys remember when malls were actually not just for shopping, but they were also for social? Like, you would go to the mall to shop, yes, but the best thing about going to the mall was seeing your friends. I got to be honest with y'all. If I go to a mall now, I don't even want the people working to talk to me. I'm trying to get in and out. I don't want a social interaction. If I'm in the store and you come up to me, sir, can I help you? I'm good. And I need to repent because sometimes I am so dismissive of someone who is just trying to do their job, but it is an effect and evidence of how different our social spaces operate today because you are busy and you're tired and you have errands to run. So busy that the only place that you will reliably see people is going to be at work, it's going to be at church, or if you're connected to some scholastic event. If you don't think this is real, then you need to take a look at the data. If you are trying to date today as an adult, where do you go to find people that you can date? If you don't meet them at work or you don't meet them at church, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the app. Even courtship has been outsourced to the digital Agora. Guys, I stand before you today as somebody who found my wife online. Right there. I bumbled right in. Yes, I actually, on Bumble, when it was pure, the girl had to send the first message, so she bumbled right into me. We are kind of proof of this new world that we live in. I say all of that just to give you a little bit of context for why we need to have this conversation, because it's so important to our everyday life. The question that I would ask is, what is the church's responsibility in the digital Agora? You know, in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 12, Paul said something very interesting. He said that Jesus, he gave the evangelists and the apostles and the teachers, church leadership collectively for a specific purpose. And in that verse, he doesn't say that he gave the preachers and the evangelists and the apostles even to preach or to be the person that shares the gospel. He actually says that Christ commissioned that church leadership for the equipping of the saints collectively for ministry. And so what is the church's responsibility collectively in the digital Agora? First is to edify and encourage and equip the saints for the wild west that is our online life now. And let me give you an illustration. You guys spend about 30 to 40 minutes a week listening to a message from me. And if you go to class, you get another 45 minutes if you're attending that. And this means that out of the 168 hours a week that you have every single week, you spend about 90 minutes of them covered in the Word of God. When you're consuming content that helps you spiritually grow. Let's say that you spend 30 minutes a day in devotion and prayer. That'll move you to 4 hours out of the 168 a week. Now, if you just watched 1 hour of Netflix, is that real? 1 hour of Netflix? There's a reason why binging became a thing associated with media instead of other things, right? Let's say you watch 1 hour of Netflix and only listen to 1 hour of Spotify, podcasts, or other radio news, and only scrolled your phone on social media for 1 hour a day. You at 1 hour a day, guys. 1 hour a day. You'd still be consuming twice as much content that is driven by, spread by, and fueled by the dissipation, the dysfunction, and the deceptions of the world around us than you are by Jesus. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Family, I hope you think I'm good at this preaching thing. I really do. I hope you think I'm pretty good. I think I do all right. I think that God has gifted me for it. But I want to have an honest moment with you right now. There is no way that the messaging that you will get from me on a Sunday is going to win that battle. I don't care if I deliver a precision sniper shot right to your heart every single Sunday, and it was the word on time that God called for right at that moment. It is not going to overcome the continuous flood of messaging and programming that you are consuming on a daily basis. So if I have one rebuke for all of us in this message, it's that our expectation for spiritual growth based on one Sunday sermon a week is the most ludicrous and delusional thing we have ever tricked ourselves into believing. I'm not gonna win. I got one shot and I spend too much time telling stories. One round a week and you walk out that door or just pick up your phone and you've got a full-blown, fully automatic 50 cal attached to an Apache helicopter that is meant to do harm. There's no way I'm coming out on top in that battle. It's a strong delusion. And so it's no wonder that Christians are being more spiritually formed by the political pundits that we listen to for hours, or the culture that we consume daily for hours, or the memes and rants that we engage with daily for hours. So the first responsibility of the church collectively in this digital agora is to be providing content, a stream of spirit-feeding media that can offset some of this terrible misbalance. That means we have to be honest about the fact that just one Sunday a week is not getting it done. We have a greater responsibility to be in relationship with each other throughout the week to try and offset this vast disparity. It's our job, I believe, as leaders to make sure that you guys have something good to be ingesting through the week that will counteract all of the other stuff that is going on in your ethos, so that the conversations that we have on Sunday don't end on Sunday, but they continue to take root through the week. Now, I'm going to tell you, every single person has a choice in what they choose to consume or not consume. I can't make that call for you, but we can work as a team and as a church to make sure that there is at least a steady drip of godly goodness to counter the torrent of everything else that's out there. Additionally, it's this. It's important for us to provide, based on Ephesians chapter 4, to provide tools and resources that can help every disciple be on mission, even online. And that means creating things that will help you get into spiritual conversations out there in the digital agora. More on that coming in a bit. In short, I would sum up this point just by saying, we don't want your conversation with God or your conversations with others about Jesus to end on Sunday. Does that make sense? Secondly, last thing on this, we have a responsibility to position ourselves in this digital agora in a way that can influence the world around us. And that means, aside from creating things that just are kind of nice to have and bless you guys, we actually have to work to create a digital presence that allows the world around us to find us, engage with us, see a window into who we are as a community, and creates opportunities for a seeker or a disciple looking for home to connect with us. And some of what we do weekly can fulfill both of those responsibilities, but some of it needs to be targeted. Put plainly, what we do online is one of the best evangelistic tools that we have, and a powerful one, and a negligence if we actually waste it. Most churches are not in the position that we find ourselves in one of the fastest growing counties in the entire country. And that means that there's a constant influx of people who may be seeking, have no church affiliation at all, or are looking for a new church home, and it would be a dire shame if they never found out what God is doing here at Leander because we were not occupying this space in an intentional way that glorifies God. They can't join this mission if they don't know that we exist. Think of our website functioning in the same way that a church steeple used to work. Why did they put steeples on churches? It made it the highest, most visible point in the town. And when someone would come into town and they were looking for a church, they would navigate to the steeple. That's where the tradition came from. People don't so much do that anymore because they're probably going to pick up their phone and look for churches near me. And if they can't find our steeple, guess where they're not going to end up? It makes sense, right? We went from steeples to like really witty, clever church signs to LCD boards to now the digital online presence. In fact, statistics say that over 50% of people who find a new church find them online. Did anyone find us online before they visited here for the first time? There are people in this room right now that found us online with an aging website. So, with all of this as a bit of context, because I think the what never matters without the why. So we just spent a lot of time talking about the why we're even having this conversation. I'm excited to show you something that we've been up to, and something that we've been working on really hard to address, those two responsibilities. Back in September, I said that the leadership had decided to work on some really exciting things. I'm going to show some of that to you right now, and I hope that you'll see some of the benefit that we've been working on. One second. Our new website is actually live. It launched just this Friday. It's our new digital home. You're watching a little bit of a preview right now. Actually, I would like for you guys to give a round of applause to Alan, Mark Morrow, Ray. They worked very, very hard on making this possible. It's there now. If you still have your phones out, you can look at the mobile version at leanderchurch.org. It is our home and our hub on the internet. This site has been rebuilt from the bottom up to encourage interaction and connection with us. Everything from inviting those to get to know us a little bit, to learn who we are and what we believe, to actually planning their visit here and connecting with us, or to engaging with the media that we've worked really hard to create continually, or to volunteer. We've got a little bit of everything on that site. It's much less a collection of just facts about who we are, and it's actually more, here's how you can be a part of what God is doing. Here's how you get plugged in to what is happening here. There have been so many that have had a hand in this to make it possible to accurately reflect all of the incredible things that God is doing here. We're so excited to show it off to the world and to give you a place that you can feel excited to show to people because it's an accurate representation of who you are. So we have the new website that is live now, and we've also done a lot with our YouTube. Has been totally rebranded and rebuilt as well. It's been growing in subscribers and followers. If you're a YouTube person or know people that are, you can actually send them here. Some of the videos on YouTube have done incredible numbers, and there are lots of folks tuning in from all over the world as well as local. We've done a lot of work revamping the meta platforms too, Facebook and Instagram. And so we've made sure that we have provided pretty much every outlet that we can at this point in time to create and house everything from full sermons to short form content and clips that serve both of those two responsibilities that I outlined before. One, a place where you guys can continue to get fed through the week, and as time goes, there's going to be content there that you won't hear on a Sunday, maybe a little extra if you're extra nerdy or you just want to endure some more punishment. I promise I won't play the internet modem connecting sound. It's going to be good stuff for you. But the second is that those resources are there as a great way for you to get in spiritual conversations with people that are in your sphere of influence. Our goal with all of the stuff that we've been doing is to facilitate what we would call digital discipling and digital door knocking. So I want you to hold that thought on digital door knocking. All of that's exciting, and all of it's really nice, and it looks cool, and sure, all the work that has gone into it will continue to go into these, but that's not the point. Our church having a great presence in a website or media that's created isn't the be-all, end-all. It doesn't exist just so that we can say it exists. Oh, that's nice, that's pretty. I'm sure that costs some money. I'm glad that it looks pretty good. Everything has to be done with intention so these things can functionally work to equip and resource the saints who are a part of this church family to witness powerfully amidst your circle of influence. That's right. I'm serious when I say this, guys. None of this would be done, let alone would I spend the time discussing it, if the entire point wasn't for the furtherance of the message of the gospel and the growth of the kingdom. Turn over to Acts chapter 13 really quick, just a few chapters before what we just read in Acts chapter 17 happened. This is Paul and Barnabas. They're getting ready to take off from Antioch of Pisidia, and this is the beginning of the missionary journeys. It says this, as we read this morning: the next Sabbath day, the whole city gathered to hear the word of God, but the Jews and the crowds were filled with jealousy, and they began to contradict what was spoken by Paul, reviling him. There's nothing but contradictions and reviling happening online right now. Sounds kind of familiar. And Paul and Barnabas spoke out boldly, saying, it was necessary that the word of God be spoken first to you, since you thrust it aside and judge yourselves unworthy for eternal life. Behold, we are turning to the Gentiles, for so the Lord has commanded us, saying, and this comes from Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 6. Read this with me. It says, I have made you a light for the Gentiles, that you may bring salvation to the ends of the earth. And they're traveling throughout the entire Mediterranean region, and Paul's goal is to try and get the gospel to everybody so that Jesus can come back. That's the goal of his life. And so he uses language like to the ends of the earth, even though the world was probably much bigger than Paul could ever have imagined at that point in time. He didn't know that we were even going to exist over here in North America, that half of the world hadn't been discovered yet. When the Gentiles heard this, they began rejoicing and glorifying the word of the Lord, and many as were appointed to eternal life believed. And then in verse 49 it says, the word of the Lord was spreading throughout, or some translations render this word, published throughout the whole region. What we see here is the beginning of the missionary journeys of Paul and Barnabas, and it's the beginning of the church's intentional effort to take the gospel, as we would say here at Leander, near and far. Now, none of us are Paul or Barnabas, and we haven't been sent to a foreign missionary journey. Some of us have taken those before. But if what we talked about last week was true, do you guys remember what Al and I talked about last week? That everywhere we go, since we are indwelled by the Holy Spirit, everywhere we go is being converted from hostile ground to holy ground. That means that everywhere you are is mission territory for Jesus. And that means where you go physically, and that also means the spaces that you inhabit digitally as well. Have you ever thought about your online presence that way? I mean, have you actually stopped and thought about the digital spaces that you are in, which are probably without a doubt the most hostile areas you're going to enter on a daily basis. Have you thought about yourself, like we encouraged us to think about ourselves in our life overall last week, as an instrument of peace in those hostile places? Do we see ourselves as instruments of peace? Far more likely, we're just having fun, or we're bored, and it's a way for us to pass the time. And I'm not saying you can't have fun. That's a great thing. Or we're being swept up in hostility. More on that in a couple weeks. Have you thought about the power of your witness and influence in these spaces intentionally, knowing that your digital presence is as much a counterclaim of holiness as your physical presence? I'll say that one more time. Your digital presence is a counterclaim just like your physical presence. Did you ever think that how you might handle yourself online actually has an impact on the spread of the gospel, on the growth of the kingdom, on the influence and impact of the church you actually physically attend? Because it does. This word that's used for spreading or published is Greek diaphora, and it means to bear, carry witness through any place, to publish, or to carry different ways. Here's the only way that any of this matters. It only matters if each of us see ourselves as participants in the diaphora of this place. The call is for each of us to take seriously the kind of influence and impact that we each can have if we inhabit this digital agora with intention and on mission. So I have two final things for you this morning, church. How this can help you and how you can help. First is this. Out of all of this, please hear this most clearly. I encourage you to be intentional and selective about what you consume with regularity online. I'm telling you, you need more than one shot from me weekly to overcome your anxiety. You need more than one shot from me for God to be present in your life and for you to feel Him and see Him and walk with Him. You need more than one shot from me on a Sunday to overcome the hopelessness that is so pervasive in our day and our time. So I would encourage you to engage with the content that we create and put out here. Yes, please follow all the new stuff that we're putting out, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Listen again to a message because I have a tendency to talk really fast. It might help you. I don't know, maybe give it a second brush digitally. This doesn't replace your time in prayer or in the Word, but it can impact the effect of your time digitally. I would encourage you to find other trustworthy sources to consume, whether they are podcasts or other church messages or Bible Project videos on YouTube or using our church license for Right Now Media. I want you to make sure that you are taking in as much spirit-feeding content as you are anxiety-inducing content. I want you to imagine as well, secondly, that the thing that scares you the most, which is probably talking to somebody about Jesus, what if you could do that in a way and get into spiritual conversations in a way without making it weird? I'm done with door knocking, guys. Just going to come out and say it. Anyone ever been part of a door knocking campaign? Did you have fun? It's good, right? There are lots of good things about a door knocking campaign. Number one, it puts an emphasis on evangelism. It gets everybody involved. It gets us all to own the mission, right? It used to be a really effective way to have a spiritual conversation with somebody. It increases the zeal and gets everybody together on the common page. But how's that been going for like the last, 30 years? I'm done with door knocking. There's a reason why door knocking worked, guys. Door knocking was a great evangelistic tool, not a Holy Spirit sanctioned and only way you can do evangelism tool. It was good because you know what else you could do when you knocked on a door back when you could get a Bible study? You could sell a JCPenney's catalog. You could sell vacuum cleaners. Can confirm my dad sold these things called TriStars for like the first 10 years of my life. And he would just walk up to a neighborhood and knock on a door, do a demonstration on a couch, pull out some dust mites, and Lord knows what else was living in that floor. And he would sell a $500 vacuum because you could just go knock on a door. You could also sell a set of encyclopedias. You could sell insurance going door to door. It was an effective marketing technique of the time, and the church rightfully purposed that into an evangelistic tool to have spiritual conversations with people. So when I say I'm done with door knocking, I'm not being critical of door knocking. I'm just saying, when you see a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness start rolling up your driveway on that Ring doorbell, what y'all think? Can we be real? Do you think, I've been waiting for this all day? Come on in, buddy. Tell me all about Joseph Smith. Now, you might if you really want to argue that day. And I want to say, I really commend them for being so sold out and zealous for what they believe that they are willing to leave their home and walk into a strange neighborhood where nobody wants to hear what they have to say and doing it anyway. So I give them credit for that. But my point is, if you know that's how you feel when you see them coming down a driveway, why would we decide that that's the best way for us to start to engage the community around us and put ourselves at the bottom of that hill that we got to climb, that people aren't even successful climbing in our own minds? What I want to say is, what if you could do some genuine digital door knocking instead? Let me just give you an example of one way this can happen. I have a good buddy, and I'm going to protect his name in case he ever watches this. I've been praying for a way to get into a conversation with him. He formerly was a guy that had faith. He went through some really difficult life experiences, and that soured him, it hardened him. And we all know people like that, don't we? And it's hard to figure out, what can I say to this person, especially, even working in ministry. Like, I feel like he's always waiting for the hammer to drop, like, hey, let's talk about Jesus. Like, how can I enter a genuine conversation without trying to sell him on something that he's not looking for, that he's turned his mind against? And I could try to find and craft the perfect thing to invite him to, or the perfect thing to say to pitch him or convince him. But you know how I actually got into a spiritual conversation with him? It was a clip. It wasn't even from me. It was of another evangelist, and he was talking about something that I knew had happened in my friend's life. It was 27 seconds long. And I opened up the instant messenger, I opened up the direct message, and I said, hey man, I remembered our conversation last week. I know it's a tough time for you. I thought of you when I saw this, and I thought it might encourage you. And I sent that 27 seconds. And you wouldn't believe where our conversation went after that. Because now I was in a spiritual conversation with him that I didn't try to sell him on. I was a friend who was in relationship with him, knew what was going on in his life, and I just took a resource that had part of the solution to what he was already struggling with. So I shared a solution instead of trying to sell him on what I wanted him to do. And that made all the difference in the world for him. So if you ask, like, how could this actually be something that helps me share the gospel? I want to be the first to tell you that if you're paying attention to what is being created and all the effort that's going into that, it is so when you are in your digital space or your physical space and you're having a real human interaction with somebody and they are going through something and they need encouragement, you have something that can get you into that spiritual conversation that isn't awkward and actually lets them know that you are a real friend that really cares and you can let God do the rest. Now, the goal of those online conversations, of course, is to lead someone to a real conversation. But you might not be able to walk through their physical door with the relationship you have, but you might be surprised how God will open a digital one that leads to a physical one. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Now, here's how you can help. See yourself and what you do as a part of the advancement of God's kingdom. Every place you inhabit is a place that is transitioning from hostile to holy ground. Begin to consider your actions and the content you share online as the part of the diaspora, the publishing of the gospel in your circle of influence in the digital space. Consider yourself as part of a modern day missionary journey. Know that when you're engaging with videos and the website and YouTube and all these things on the social pages, you're actually making a huge impact on how far that message will go out and circulate from this space. When you like a post, the networks will show it to more people. When you comment on things, the networks will show it to even more people. And we even tested this with a couple of our sermons. If you share them to your personal pages, we saw a couple of the sermons go from under 100 views to over 2,000 with just 2 people making that intentional step. Now, if something doesn't resonate with you, don't fake it. But if something does, put it out there and see what God will do with it. It's not just for looks because we want to be something that we've seen around us, but we know how powerful the intentional use of these things can be to share the message. So when you do engage with the stuff that you see, you're witnessing personally, you're participating in the publishing of the gospel that goes out. If you've ever thought, I wish I could do something to help the kingdom grow here, this is one of the easiest things you can do and one of the more impactful things you can do, especially if you're on your phones and online at some point every day. Think about what you share daily and ask yourself this question: am I publishing peace or am I proliferating anxiety? In closing this morning, church, we live in a very different world today than yesterday, don't we? It is fast-paced. It is, for better or worse, whether you like it or not, it's digital. It can be overwhelming. It can be frustrating. This digital agora, of which we are all participants, occupies a large space in all of our lives now. And all I'm suggesting this morning is that we start inhabiting and navigating and engaging it intentionally and with some self-awareness. Because there are dangers, of course, and sometimes, unfortunately, we are the danger, but it also represents such a powerful opportunity. For the very first time, every Christian can go viral in a good way or a bad way. Here's what I mean. Every Christian has a powerful, unlimited platform from which they can witness to the watching world. It includes your entire circle of influence from different life seasons and chapters. One of the coolest things about my social media is that I've got people from high school there. I got people from college there. I have people from old jobs there. I have family members who I don't really know there. And we keep up with family from all over the world there. Paul left on a missionary journey by land and to try and publish the mission of the message and the kingdom and the gospel throughout a region. And just think about how crazy it is that each of us have the power, without going on one boat or strapping up one sandal, to publish the message of the kingdom throughout the entire world with the click of a finger. But do we share more memes than we do Jesus? Do we share more stress than we do hope? Do we share more anxiety and rage than we do peace? If it is that case, and as long as it's that case, we will forfeit such a great opportunity and the power to be a part of the diaspora, the ongoing missionary journey in this brave new world, this cyber frontier, this digital agora. When Jesus said we would be his witnesses even to the ends of the earth, somehow I don't imagine him saying that with except for online in mind. Because now you actually have the ability to be a witness even to the end of the earth. So the call and the goal here is for us to be disciples who make disciples. That's the mission. But a submission, a part of that these days, I would say, is that we be disciples in the digital too. And we participate in a little bit of digital door knocking and see what God will do through that digital agora. He's been working in the place where people congregate for a very, very, very long time. And something tells me that he's still up to the task, even today, even though the names and the dates and the places and the methods and the venues have changed. He's still a good God, and he still does what God has always done. We get to be a part of that. Isn't that incredible? I think it's incredible. So let's march into the new week armed with a little bit more of a different self-awareness as we inhabit these digital spaces. You might be surprised what God will do through you even to this day. We're about to have an invitation song this morning. If you are here and you have not yet given your life to Christ and joined that great missionary journey and gone on mission with him, there's not a better, more meaningful thing that you can do with your life. That invitation is always open to you. If you need to take a step towards Jesus today, we would love to receive you, and we'll publish some piece all about you joining the kingdom of heaven far and wide today. If we can help you in that way, please come as we stand and sing.